Fantastic. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, all. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. We should have here folks from all over. So please, if you would, type in the chat where you are, what state, what city and state you're at, and how long, how many years you've been in the business. That way we've got an idea of who all is here, and we can kind of like maybe network with each other. I like to start like that. Okay. I'm in Virginia. I'm in Chesapeake. My name is Christian Iturbe, aka Turbo. You guys may have seen the graphic that was put on the social media advertising that I would be here today, and I didn't quite know what I would be discussing today, as I'm a little removed from the day-to-day grind of being, as I like to refer, a street agent. Somebody out there doing the thing. I've been kind of like sitting in my cave for almost the last 6 years, just managing. But we'll get into all that. AKA, a little bit about me, Turbo. I've been Turbo since the third grade. Um, that's just a nickname that was given to me by one of my friends because of my last name. My last name being Spanish, and it's got the turb in there. So I guess it was just a thing that came up. And I've been Turbo ever since. So all through my years in the military and all that, everybody knows me as Turbo. Very few people know my last name or even how to pronounce it. So that's kind of cool. I started in real estate about 10 years ago. I started right after I retired in 2013. It's been great. So I've been licensed just about 10 years. I started in sales, just like most of you, well, all of you. We all started the same. But my drive has pushed me towards the managerial side of the business after a few short years in that. One of the big things that I'm a big proponent of, and I talk to the agents all the time that I interact with, is chasing the education. Anybody can run out there and get a pre-licensing class done in 2 to 3 weeks, in some cases a little bit more, and become an agent and just go do the thing. But education does go quite far for you in your professional development, and that's kind of like the stuff I want to talk about today. Okay, I just want to wrap it up. Um, I was going to say a few things about me. What I'm a grandfather of two beautiful, awesome kids. Anybody else grandparents out there? How cool is that, right? So that love is incredible. So, father of four. They're all boys, all grown men at this point. I'm a veteran of 20 years in the world's finest Navy. But today I come to you as a realtor. You know, any other veterans? Not right now. Not yet. It's okay. It's all good. Anyway, if you are, thank you for your service. Um, let's see. I got my notes here. All right. So yeah, got started in real estate. Got started in my real estate education in late 2012 because I was coming up on my military retirement. Didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to be the guy that took off the uniform on a Friday and back to work at the same place as a civilian on a Monday. Nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of folks that do that kind of stuff, but I was just kind of done with the military, done with aviation. I didn't want to touch any more airplanes for a while. So I decided to get my real estate license. And besides, after watching real estate TV shows, I mean, who doesn't want to just show some wealthy people three houses, ride around in fancy cars, dress fancy, and make $300,000 commission check off of one sale, right? That's how the TV shows portray it. So we all know now that that is not necessarily always the case. Okay, so that's the piece of it there. This career is a lot of work. I mean, it might not be the back-breaking, sweat all day kind of like work that I was used to in the military, but the hours are long. There's tons of stress. You gotta really pay strong attention to detail, but it is also emotionally and financially rewarding once you get there. One of my favorite things to do is my favorite things in my whole life. I mean, one of the best experiences ever is to hand over the keys to a brand new first time homeowner at the closing table and seeing the look on their face and the smile and sometimes the tears in their eyes. They've been striving to buy a home for the first time. And so I have a really soft spot in my heart for home buyers, especially first time home buyers, especially those that are a little more seasoned. The 22-year-old home buyers are all great. I love them. but it's those 40, 50-year olds that have never owned their own home that have been working hard to finally get there, and they finally get there. And when you hand those keys over, I get I get a rush. Anybody else? You guys, that's a thing. That is really a thing. I'm not the only weirdo. Okay, good, good, good. So what I'd like to do in this session today is not so much a presentation where I just talk and talk and talk and everybody pretends to listen. I'm not into that. So open mics, interject, throw suggestions, throw ideas, throw questions. That's what I'm all about. I've always been like that. I'm not one of those hold questions to the end kind of guys unless the information is super important. But this is just a discussion on my ideas on business and personal development as a realtor. Okay. So open mics if you want. In our business, there's a lot of ways of doing things. What works in my market, what works for me, might not work for the next agent in the same market, and definitely might not work in your market wherever you are. We've got folks in here from Texas. I see a lot of Virginias, obviously, Florida. So yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention too much to the chat because I'm trying to talk and fill time. But yeah, so we've got folks from all over, and the licensing rules change from state to state, and we'll discuss that as well. But even here in the state of Virginia, we've only got about 28 associations. I know that's nothing compared to Texas and Florida, but I mean it's kind of a big thing. And having been a member of almost all of those over the last couple of years, I can tell you that business is very different from one area to the next. And it could be as simple as just across the bridge here, 10 minutes from the North Carolina border. There's a lot of agents that are licensed there as well. And I'm definitely going to talk about that. But um, business is different. We basically have the same end goal in mind. We want to get people to the closing table. We want to put people in their homes. We want to take people out of their homes and move them on to bigger and better things, right? That's basically our goal of our business. So things, like I said, things that work in my market not might not work in yours. But when we discuss and we have open forums and we share ideas and processes, just a little bit of tweaking on one side or the other, we can definitely tailor things to make those things work that you hear from other folks. Having been a state broker for all the last almost 6 years, I've been involved in supervising. I'm reading a little bit of my stuff and guiding agents in many associations and as many as about 14 different MLSs, wasn't that? We have about 14 MLSs in our state, right, Christine? Something like that. But we all have, you know, the now I'm going back into the whole thing with the differences in the contracts and all that. Virginia is one of those states where we have different contracts depending on your association or your MLS, and not all states are like that. I use North Carolina as an example. We live 10 minutes from the border here in North Carolina, and they have the same set of forms. All the forms are the same from the beach to the mountains. It's the same forms. In Virginia, not so much. So things are different and complicated. Really all depends on where you are. Several of our agents it- have the dual licenses with the multiple states. Here in Virginia, on the northern side of the house, we have folks that are licensed in Maryland and DC as well as Virginia, just because they're so close to the border, and it's really hard for folks, especially in that market, to decide which state they're going to live in because of jobs and different things. And on the southern part of the state, we're very close to North Carolina, and I have several agents here that are also North Carolina licensed. Anybody else in more than one state currently licensed? Not important. Just trying to take the temperature there. You guys live?
Yeah.
I just keep
I
talking.
used to be I used to be in Georgia because my son lives there and does a lot of real estate, but he's like, "Mom, you got to be here to do it." So I didn't figure out how to do it, and I didn't want to pay all the different fees until I knew it was going to be profitable for me. So I'm always open because he just bought some property in North Carolina too. So I want a little piece of that pie he's doing.
I hear you. I hear you. Nothing wrong with that. But just you're just talking about being licensed in multiple jurisdictions. You know that there's different pieces and different local ways of doing things, and so that's my piece of it here. I kind of take real estate education pretty seriously. Let me go off script here for a second. I get a lot of text messages and calls and Facebook chats and all kinds of emails and stuff with agents asking questions about stuff. And it's not that I I don't mind answering questions. That's what I'm here for. That's what I get paid to do, and that's what I enjoy doing is helping agents. But my biggest thing is always having agents kind of research a little bit on their own, and find the information. Yeah, it's quick. You're in the car. You got to go to this showing, and you got that. But I mean, it's super important, guys, to know the rules and regulations of not only your own MLS and associations in your state, but also of the company. And I can't tell you, I started back in December. I can't tell you how many text messages and questions I get from agents, about things that if they just looked in the LPT Connect into the policy and procedures manual, they could answer 90% of their questions. I know agents don't read. It's a long joke and everything, especially for our brokers and everything. Agents don't read. But guys, I mean, it's super, super easy to find the information for yourself. And the best thing about it is that once you have researched something and looked up the answer for yourself, you'll never have that question again, and you can help guide other folks in, that question. Let me get off my soapbox. So, um, that's basically where I've been. I've been just curious about how things work in real estate. Let me get back to what I wrote here. Ultimately, because of my natural curiosity, when I started in real estate, I set out to learn the business, right? I wanted to learn by doing. Obviously, we can all throw contracts together and put agents in the car. I mean, sorry, clients in the car and take them out and go sell houses. That's not the challenge. The challenge for me was always understanding the why. Why are the contracts written the way they are? Why are there different things in the contracts? Why are we have these different rules and regulations? That's the fun part for me. Let me make sure I shut this down. All right. Why are we doing all these things? Because if we can't explain this, we don't have a good understanding of why the contracts are the way they are or why the process is the way it is. How can we then impart that knowledge on to our clients that we're educating in the process? They're trusting us, and most times very blindly. They don't really know and understand the rules. They're there. I mean, some of them will tell you that they know everything. We all have those, right? They know everything, and they have an uncle's cousin's roommate, college nephew, taxi driver guy who was licensed once before and bought a house in 1952, and so they know better than you. But that's the whole piece of it. I always wanted to know and understand the why. Why do we have that? I wanted to know the nuts and bolts and all that. So after all, that's what drove me to be more of a proponent towards the educational and professional development side. As realtors, I feel that we have an obligation to the people that we deal with to be experts in our field. We get there not only by the experience of getting to the closing table and throwing deals together, but also the time that we spend taking courses. Um, we all have continuing education requirements. They're usually mandated by the state in which we hold our licenses. If you have a license in more than one state, you have multiple requirements for licenses and all that. So it could be pretty different depending on where you're at and what courses you need to take. And it could be pretty time consuming, but I promise you, the more you know, the better better prepared you'll be for when the hiccups come up, and you don't have to go running with your tail between your legs to the broker, who you can't find most times because they're out on the boat or whatever else. Not me. I'm here. you know, it is what it is, but things are different. So, like I said, I keep talking about North Carolina. I live about 15 minutes from the North Carolina border, and things are so different down there. Now, I've been licensed in North Carolina, but currently it's inactive just because the requirements for the education is so crazy there. In Virginia, for instance, the pre-licensing is 60 hours. You've got 30 hours of post-licensing education that's got to be done within 12 months of your license being issued. And then going forth, you only have 16 hours of continuing ed every 2 years. I mean, that's not a lot. That's not a lot compared to, and some states have more and some states have less. But in North Carolina, in North Carolina, for instance, it's 75 hours of pre-licensing education, and within the first 18 months of your license, you have to complete 90 hours of post licensing education. In which case, after you've completed that, now you're a full broker. There are no such thing as salespersons in North Carolina. Everyone will mandatorily be a broker in North Carolina, no option. So agents in North Carolina have to read. You know what I mean? They have to read. Let's see. You don't have the option of being a broker associate or associate broker. Are those the only two terms? Has anybody else heard any other terms? No. Broker associate, I think, is a Florida thing. Associate broker is a Virginia thing. In North Carolina, they're called just brokers, you know. And then, of course, you got the ones that are managing, those are called BICs, brokers in charge. So if you have something different, type it in the chat. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Um, what else was I going to talk about? So, yeah, so I've done a few deals with a few agents that are North Carolina and Virginia licensed, and there's a difference in those agents compared to just the agents that are licensed in North Carolina. It seems that because of the education requirements are much higher in North Carolina, that the agents that I've done deals with myself, or the agents that I've helped manage on the Virginia side of the house, seem to be a lot more prepared. Not saying that they're better at their job or they make more money, none of that. I'm just saying that when it comes to throwing the deal together and when issues come up and just rules and laws and stuff, the North Carolina slash Virginia agents that I've dealt with seem to be on a higher level of understanding of all the things that are going on. So I don't know. There's something to be said for education, right? I think so. Let's see. Get back to my notes. Yeah, I was just making a note in there about how North Carolina Virginians, North Carolina agents seem to be a little bit more transactional. They don't get involved in all the drama, whereas Virginia agents that are only Virginia agents seem to, for the most part, not everybody, and not speaking to this group, obviously, but they get more emotional. And they take on the stresses and concerns of their clients, and it's all about the win-win at all cost. And the North Carolina, Virginia agents that I've dealt with seem to have a little bit more um, spirit of willingness to cooperate to get to the end goal instead of just like sometimes throwing the deal. Here we go with education. So um, that's the drive that drove me when I first got started in real estate. Um, I wanted to get education. I wanted to know more things. Obviously, the post licensing stuff was cool, and the continuing education stuff was cool. But I also wanted to know more stuff. So I started looking at NAR offers these certifications and designations, and they kind of piqued my interest. I want to know what's going on. One thing that I noticed was these some of these, especially the bigger agents that have been around a while, had all these weird letters after their title, their name, or whatever. You know, on their business cards or on their car magnet or whatever else on their website. They had all these weird abbreviations. Started looking at that stuff, and that's where I, learned about the NAR designations and certifications. Didn't quite so much get that information uh, firsthand from the office that I was at, but my broker was great, and he answered questions when I started asking about that, gave me the information on that stuff. The very first certification that I got was the short sale and foreclosure resource certification. I got my license in 2013, and so at the time the market was flooded with distressed properties. So I decided to get that. Oh, let me get this right here. Copy. I'll put this in the chat. Paste. Maybe short sales aren't a thing right now, but they were 10 years ago when I got licensed, right? So distressed properties and knowing how to handle those transactions and those kind of deals was super important to me because it seemed like there was a lot of stuff going on, and there was only a handful of agents that I knew that had that down. So other than just riding along in their back pocket while they're doing these short sale and foreclosure deals, I figured that that would be a good designation for me to have. The next certification I got was the military relocation professional. Phone is blowing up, just vibrating over here. The military relocation professional designate. I'm sorry, this is a certification as well. I just dropped a link for that. Listen, I've gotten business from this one. This one, I got this one because obviously being a veteran, but because the area here in Tidewater, Hampton Roads, whatever you want to call it, is a huge, huge, huge military community. We're home of the world's largest naval base. There's about a dozen or so smaller bases and installations in this area, and about 95% of my business is either an active duty or a veteran or a retiree of the military. So, I figured that it would only be natural to get that designation. Now, I know these designations or certifications cost a few bucks, but I thought throwing those little initials after my name on my business cards is a little impressive. And one of the things that I have in my sales presentation, in my listing presentation, is on the very back page after we get all through the numbers and all that stuff. I have a resume. I have my real estate resume there, and it kind of goes into the different qualifications that I have as an agent. So I have those in there. Um, I feel that they've helped me. There is in the military relocation professional. Does anybody else have that one? Cool. Have you used the resources, the flyers, the network stuff, and all that? I've used it, and they do publish you on their website for MRP, and those websites do get pushed out to the military, and they are able to find folks, agents that have that certification through the Realtor.com website as well. It's got this little badge on there that you're a military professional and all that. And I have gotten leads just from that, and I've also gotten referrals from agents as far as San Diego, just because I was designated as an MRP, and they were able to find me in our MRP. We have our own separate MRP directory, and we can just contact each other through there. So if you have that, I would strongly suggest make sure it's updated, make sure they've got your phone number, your email address, so you can get business from that. I haven't checked mine in a while, but leaving this meeting, I'm probably going to go check and do that, put that on my to-do list today. So cool beans. That was the MRP. Took that course last week. Need to pay for the certification now. Jan, what are they charging for the MRP now? Is it like $90 or something?
That's for the course. Then you have to pay 195 to get the full certification.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, and
So
that
it's about a
195
$300 nut. Hmm?
So, okay, but that 195, so the SFR and the MRP are certifications, and those certifications, once you get them, they're paid. You don't have to redo them or pay every year. Those are certifications. Now, they do have designations, right? That's a whole different set of courses, and they're a little bit more in depth. Um, uh, and those you have to pay every year. And this year, I just didn't pay for the one that I had because my goals are completed with what I wanted to do with it. But I'll talk about that one. The next one that I got was my first designation was the ABR. Anybody else? I think it's a really good one. I got that one mostly because I enjoy buyers more than I enjoy sellers. Put that one in here. Boom. So ABR, accredited buyer's representative, like I said, you already know how to work with buyers, but this stuff goes much more in depth, and it does provide some additional things to consider, things to talk about. And if I'm not mistaken, and I haven't seen it in a while, the ABR also has its own website with its own directory of other ABRs you can find around the country. So most of the designations have something like that. The next two that I'm thinking about getting is the CRS, the Certified Residential Specialist. That's a huge one. They have a really big uh, network, a referral network in CRS. That's a big one. And the GRI, the Graduate of the Realtor Institute. For that one, I think you have to have a designation already just to get one of those. It's kind of like a prerequisite. So, you know what? Let me put that link in there too. I've enjoyed taking courses and getting out of the craziness of the day to day from time to time, and networking with agents from other places, and taking these classes at the local association. I think you can now do them online, and I think that that was a big change from COVID. I haven't taken one since COVID. Jan, was yours online? What you,
No, I actually am still a member of RAR, so it was there
okay,
in
so you went
Richmond.
up to RIR. Gotcha, gotcha.
It was
Okay,
best course I've ever taken.
the ABR.
No, no, I'm sorry. I was the military relocation. I
Oh, the
also did
military.
ABR in Richmond as well, but that's been a while ago.
Gotcha. Anybody want to share any thoughts on certifications, designations? Anybody got any cool ones?
Yes, I have the pricing strategist, and that has helped me in really understanding the structure of pricing a listing. That was valuable. That one I did online during COVID. Um, and I also have the seniors real estate specialist, but I'm like you, I haven't paid for that one. So I have it, but I'm not active.
It's not that I couldn't make the deadline. It's just I'm not really using it right now. So the cool thing is I kind of like a few years ago I didn't pay for the ABR recertification, the yearly top up. Didn't pay for it, and I kind of sat dormant for about almost 2 years. I decided to renew it, and I didn't have to go through the class or anything again. I just paid my money, and I was an ABR again. So it is what it is. But I like the education piece of it. I like being more prepared for stuff. And like I was saying, on the back of my listing presentation that I give to my um, clients or customers that I'm trying to convert into clients, it's got my resume, my real estate resume, and it's got all my courses in education, all the license, all the all the licenses. At the time I wrote it, I still had the North Carolina license. But all my certifications and kind of like a little sentence about what they mean, um, the associations that I'm a member of, the MLSs that I'm a member of, and that kind of thing. So that way they can see, that here's enough. All right, broker license. I make sure that that's on there and explain what it is. And I'll get into that in a second. I wrote a big piece on that because I definitely do believe that a broker license is important, especially if you're going to make this a career long term. Let me get back to my notes, but that's it on certifications and designations. I really like those. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, so in my time in the Navy, and I'm pretty sure it's not just Navy, I'm pretty sure it's pretty much all the services or something, or even maybe even some other industries. They train us constantly, strongly encourage us to work your supervisor out of a job. What does that mean? That means that once you've learned your job and you're proficient at what you're doing, you need to learn the job of the person who's the leader for your whatever, your squad, your team, your whatever in the military, because they do move us around quite a bit. Every 2 to 5 years, somebody's moving, and we're not all on the same cycle. People leave every week, and so it's super important to work your supervisor out of a job, which means that when your supervisor, your petty officer, your sergeant, whatever has to go, somebody has to step up from that unit usually and take the spot. Normally that comes with a promotion and more money. So it's important to have that understanding that somebody's going to replace that person. Why can't it be you? Which is kind of like the mentality that I took into real estate when I started getting more into the educational side of it. The management side of stuff was not something so much that I wanted to be a part of right away, but I figured I'd get my broker license, right? It looks good on my resume. I'm not just a broker. I mean, I'm not just a realtor. I'm also a broker, and this is what that means. Um, but I'm also ready to take on the role if in case the call ever came from the firm headquarters saying that, oh, we have a new office starting up or so and so is retiring, we need a new broker, that I would be in the pool of candidates, if and when that time ever came. I'm thinking 10 years down the road, I'm 45 years old. Maybe when I'm 55, 60, I don't want to be getting in and out of the car so much. I already have bad knees. So maybe I wanted to, sit more still have a good a good career, still be able to service folks in the business and train agents and help agents. I mean, you already built the experience anyway. Might as well keep going with the career, right? Which is what drove me to do that. And I didn't so much, like I said, I didn't want to take over the office of where I was assigned. I had a great managing broker. He wasn't going anywhere, but like I said, I wanted to be in the pool of candidates. Um, so I started taking the broker classes, and I cannot tell you how good that was for my career, how good that was for my level of understanding, because I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy. I wanted to know all the things and pieces about why and where and how. Um, how things work and why they work. And so those courses, and there's in Virginia, there's four. There's finance, so you spend an entire week with an instructor who's a lender. Most times they're an active lender at a mortgage company, and it's an entire week of learning the different types of loan programs and all that. It's a great class. Even if you never want to get a broker license, I strongly suggest getting that class done because it's going to definitely help you with your buyers and your sellers, so they can understand more of what's going on with their financing part of stuff. The next class was appraisal, an entire week with an instructor who's an appraiser, and you learn all the different things. And Jan, like you said, you picked up that SFR. I mean, PSA, pricing strategy advisor or whatever, that one. It's an entire week of that. Okay. And learning how to price homes. And that definitely helped me a few years ago when I was listing more than I'm listing now. I'm not listing much at all. But I noticed that I was getting about 97% was my average of my asking price to my sales price. I don't know how many people know their numbers, but and you know what? This last 2 years, it's a wild card, since COVID. It's been almost 3 years since COVID now, probably more than 3 years. But ever since COVID, all that's out the window, with sales price to list price ratios and all that. But there was a time when that was important, right? So yeah, that was that was that piece of it. Um, let's see. So like I said, I didn't want to be a manager right away, but that's what happened. I ended up getting a cool manager job, and I did that for a while. Now I was looking at a few things. Did you know that we have 145 agents with LPT in Virginia? Not bad, right? For what, 7 months? In 7 months, we've got 145 agents with LPT in Virginia.
Mm.
Now, I can't speak to the other states, but of those 145 agents, and I checked this morning just to make sure, only 8 of those 145 agents have a broker's license. That is 0.05% of our total agent count in this state are qualified to step in if something either happens to Fred or myself and can take the job. Probably, which is the reason most likely sometimes firms hire from outside instead of from within. But that's my whole piece of it, was knowing and understanding, maybe you never want to be a broker, and that's fine. Some states, like I said, North Carolina, you don't have an option. You're going to be a full broker within 18 months of you getting your license in North Carolina. But that's that piece of it there. So just wrapping it up to say that, to me, education in the business is just as important, probably not as important as making money. But with the education, it does help. It does help. I've said it at a listing appointment once or twice, maybe more than that. Whereas a customer has said or told me that they've interviewed with other agents and have told me or shared me their information. And I basically tell them, I said, well, that's fantastic that you've shopped around to try to get the best agent that works for you. But how about you get an actual associate broker, which means you've got a higher level of understanding and education in the business. You've got the experience and all the time that you require to do all that. On top of that, you get me, associate broker, and actually now managing broker, for the same price as you get a agent who just came out of 3 weeks of real estate school. Which one do you want to go with? I've said it, and I've won the listing just on that. Not super important, but it's gotten me the listing at least twice doing that. So that's my piece of it. I wanted to talk about education. Anybody else have any pieces they want to put together out here on this? Did I talk enough?
Well, Christian, I'll put in there that I've been very, I came from EXP with the world, and during the COVID pandemic, I was stuck at home by myself. So I went in the world a lot, almost to where I'm hooked on classes. It's easier to take a class than call your leads. However, I think with LPT, it's more of an intimate learning. Like I said, Penny, hi, hey, or the people that that Robert has hired, like the social media girl, I mean, she's selling herself obviously to take over your social media, but she has shared all kinds of things with me. The coaching guy, there's group coaching, you know, so I think LPT is doing great with their classes.
Good. That's good. That's good to know and get that sentiment from you.
But the class addict, the education addict.
I gotta say that I went through a period of time where I've had some withdrawal from the world. I lived that world for about 5.5 years. So yeah, it's been a little challenging and different for me. We didn't have the social aspect of it. Christine and I spoke about that quite a few times, about how we could talk to each other and not necessarily see each other every day, but when you're out there and you don't have an office, and you've got the world, it was good. It was really good. So what else? Anybody else?
It was better than no communication at all. That's for sure.
Right.
True.
Right.
True. True. True.
Christian, are you
I
going to
can
talk
agree
about the
with that.
NAR C2EX designation?
That was a really, really good one. Thank you for that, Christine. Sure. So at our last firm, the challenge was issued by leadership to try to get as many C2EX qualified agents as possible. They wanted to be the first national brokerage to have everybody, or at least be designated as a C2EX brokerage. And C2EX stands for Committed to Excellence. It's an NAR qualification. It's super easy. Let me see if I can get that designate. Let me see. C2EX. I'll get you that link. Okay, yeah, it's C2EX.Realtor, and I'll put it here in the chat. Copy. So they issued the challenge. They said they wanted to be the first national brokerage to have every state qualified C2EX. Now, with as many thousands of agents as they had at the time, that's a pretty tall order, and they did not achieve that goal. I don't think any of the states achieved that goal because agents are busy. We drove pretty heavily. I think we ended up getting about 100 or so, maybe close to 200 agents. Do you remember the number, Christine?
No, I don't remember. We had a number of people, but it wasn't, with 2,400 agents in the state, even 100 is pretty short
Right.
showing.
It wasn't exactly 10% of the agents, but those that did do it did quite enjoy it. I mean, it kind of works a little bit like one of those continuing ed courses you get through either CE Shop or Mosley or one of those. But it does, it's nice. It's nice to have. You can track your progress on there. If you haven't done it, look into it. And of course, nothing's more important than putting food on the table. So this is for when you're looking for educational stuff, not for when you're out there grinding. I understand the grind is real. So when you've got time, and I know agents don't have time, but when you've got time, chase down some of these certifications. So C2X was really cool. Anything you want to talk about on that one, Christine, and one thing you want to share?
C2EX has probably become one of the more prestigious and free things that you can do. NAR offers it. You can use all the credentials on your email signatures. It really sets you apart because it goes through every aspect. It goes through ethics. It goes through fair housing. It goes through every component that we have to know as realtors. In fact, if I remember correctly, Christian, correct me if I'm wrong, it's got the ethics portion might even count for your ethics. That's required through NAR. I thought that I remember that, but I can't, it's been a while. I've already been through the course twice now. So I was recertified a couple of years ago. But I highly recommend if you guys are looking to get your feet wet in learning, that's a really good overview. And I think probably from there, Christian, I would go to the GRI because that single-handedly was the most advantageous class of learning, not designation, of learning. So as a realtor, and when you take different designations and certifications, some of those classes are accredited if you continue to go on like Christian did. So, if you go into your ABR and you've already taken certain the CRS classes or CFR or SRES or MRP, or I mean, the list can go on and on and on. But I too am a huge proponent. Jan, kudos to you for going to live training. I am a trainer. I train around actually I'm getting back into training around the state. I do it for our local association for continuing ed, and like Christian, I'm a huge fan of training. The more you guys know, the further you will go, because I can guarantee your competition doesn't have that mentality. They don't. And when you have that knowledge and you can recall it firsthand without saying, oh, let me check, let me confirm that, you gain all the power in the negotiations, all the power in the strategies. So I could jump on that bandwagon with Christian. We've ridden that wagon together for a few years.
Absolutely. You just said that shift of power is super important. Anybody who's been in a position of managing or something like that can understand this statement, where agents often come to their broker because they're intimidated by the agent on the other side, because they happen to have an associate broker title on their email address. Oh, this guy's a broker, and they're intimidated. It's just an agent with a couple more classes, and you can be there too someday. It's not that hard to do. But that intimidation factor does kind of shake, especially newer agents. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and they get all flustered when they're doing a deal with someone who's got that title. I get folks asking me also how I got to where I am. They want to eventually become a manager, a broker, something like that. And I just tell them, hey, you start taking the classes. I mean, those classes are great. I didn't go through all of them. So there was finance, there was the appraisal class, there's the Virginia law for Virginia. I'm sure your state would have something similar to it. And the last one was broker management. Was a great class for folks. Now, if you never want to be a broker, you don't have to take all those classes. You could just take, man, I strongly suggest the appraisal class and the mortgage class. If you're in Virginia, I don't know what the other states require, but those are great classes. You do have to pay for them. They're not free. But Christine did push that C2EX as a great endorsement. It's great. I'm not exactly sure about, does it count towards your ethics? That's definitely something to take a look at. I remember hearing something about it, or maybe they were trying to get it, but I don't remember. But that's that. I think I've spoken enough, right? I mean, unless anybody's got anything else. They don't teach appraisal class anymore for the broker's license. Okay, all right. What classes did you have, Latoya? Do you remember? You just got your broker license, what, 2 months ago?
Yeah, I did. They
Gotcha.
replaced it with just a finance class. It wasn't anything. I was upset because I was definitely hoping for the appraisal class, but nope, they took that out. They said a lot of people had given feedback stating that the appraisal class, they felt like it wasn't um, something that they needed to know.
Sure, because
And
agents know
so they
everything
would,
already.
exactly, right? And we were all hurt. Like, dang,
Right.
Well,
I was looking
much
forward
like
to
the
that.
mortgages have it, mortgage lenders have to have that. The licensee appraisers do too, and that came down to, they don't want us acting out of our area of
So,
expertise. So
yep.
if you dip your toe in that, it's kind of hard to undip it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What
For those of
else?
you who are in Florida too, I will tell you, if you're looking to get your broker's license, one of the hardest broker's license ever. So Florida, when you go for your broker's license, it's more of the class is set up and geared toward teaching you how to run a brokerage. So, I mean, it goes into full
Ooh.
out operations, lots of math. I don't like math. So study hard.
All right. That gives me a new goal. That gives me a new goal. I'm gonna tell you what, North Carolina has gotten me. I mean, they gotta in North Carolina, any here, North Carolina people? In North Carolina, in your post licensing class, whether you've done a deal or not, One of the courses, so there's 3 post-licensing courses. They're all 30 hours each. And one of them, to graduate the class on the exam, you have to work out an entire ALTA on paper, no calculator.
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, no, you get a calculator. You can't use your phone. You have to use the little, just a calculator. But you have to work out an entire ALTA. They tell you the sales price, the down payment price, the interest rate, the down payment, all the stuff. And then you have to work out the whole ALTA. And
So
you
back
have to
when I
get that
first
course done.
started, we actually used to work, we had calculations that we could estimate our clients, our buyers' buying power. Literally, me as a realtor would have to do this. Want to talk about danger? I won't even do a net sheet anymore without the title company doing it. We've seen too many situations that, oh, my calculations are off, or I missed this line item, and now their whole sheet's completely done wrong. And who's at fault? Yep, me.
Wow. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So guys, I mean, I'm pretty much done with talking about education, unless anybody else wants to stick around and talk a little bit more. We're almost at the top of the hour already anyway. I really want to thank you guys for coming in and listen to me spew all this stuff out there to you. But I do feel that agents that get educated not only are better prepared for all sorts of situations that come out, but I think that it will definitely increase your earning potential just because of the opportunities that it presents to you. Like I said, I've gotten leads from being in these networks that I couldn't get in unless I had taken these courses. And of course, ultimately the job as a broker, it was kind of like a thing that just happened. I had the qualification and somebody offered me the job, like without even knowing that I was just licensed 3 months earlier. But it's turned out to be a great career for me so far. So with
Yeah,
that,
I have a
go ahead.
Virginia question. So when
Okay,
everybody, if you don't mind staying on, if people don't want to have to hear the Virginia question.
sure. Absolutely. So with that, guys, thank you very much for coming through. I don't know if I'll ever do this again. This is Jeannie's thing, but she had a commitment and she asked me to fill in, and I obviously had no idea what I was going to talk about. Yes, I've been on the streets doing sales. Yes, I've done all that, but that's not been my main focus for the last 5 years. I've basically been in management. So I didn't have too much to offer as far as suggesting as, hey, this is how you go out there. And I mean, we could talk about nurturing your SOI and contacting FISBOs and all that other stuff, because that stuff doesn't change. But I felt that, as a broker in the management role that I'm at, I think it was important to go ahead and put this out there for folks to think about their education and career development. So thank you very much. Those that want to
Thank you.
stay, stay. Michael, we can go ahead and close the recording at this time. We'll see you guys later.